Now, you may have noticed that I skipped over one section in this story and left a blank in Peter's timeline. And I want to return that now because I wanted you to have the entire context of Peter's life before we get here. So turning to our text for today from Matthew 16. Now, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, and others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." Jesus said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter, again, always the first one to answer. He's like the Hermione Granger for Harry Potter fans. He's always the first. And Simon Peter answers, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." Then he sternly ordered the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. Now, Jesus' declaration to Peter seems to come out of nowhere. On this church, on this up and down life, I will build, on this rock, I will build my church. So what is this rock? Peter's name in Greek means rock. It means a stone or a boulder. But the word Jesus uses here for rock is slightly different. Instead of Petros, he uses Petros, which means a mass of rock or a cliff or a firm foundation. Now, theologians don't all agree on what rock Jesus is referencing here. Is the rock Peter? Is the rock Peter's confession of who Jesus is and therefore extends to all of us? Or is the rock Jesus himself, the firm foundation? Perhaps the rock is all three of these things, because all three are necessary to build the church. Now, no matter how we interpret this, we have to agree that this strong affirmation of Peter has to have been a mountaintop experience for him. And this is, quite frankly, where most messages would end. But I want to take us just a few verses further. From that time on, Jesus began to show his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and undergo great suffering at the hands of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed, and on the third day be raised. And Peter took him aside and began to rebuke him, saying, "God forbid it. Lord, this must never happen to you." But he, Jesus, turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me, for you are not setting your mind on divine things, but on human things." Ouch. That has to have pushed Peter back more than just a few paces. There's only 6 verses between Peter's confession of who Jesus is and his rebuke of Jesus. 6 short verses between his assurance of Jesus' identity and his fear of what was going to happen to Jesus and all the rest of them. 6 short verses between hearing Jesus say that God has revealed this truth to Peter and then accusing Peter of setting his mind on human things. 6 short verses between the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. 6 verses between a solid rock and a really rocky place. Now, as we look over the entire timeline of Peter's life, we can see that it was filled with highs and lows. And we can also see that there are through lines, or there are guardrails around Peter that protect him through his life. And those same guardrails are with us. The first of those is the assurance of God's supporting presence in times of need. And the second is the promise that evil will not prevail. Throughout Jesus' entire time with Peter, he was trying by practical lessons to help Peter build up his resilience. By teaching him spiritual disciplines about fellowship and community, about prayer, and about being with each other and listening to Jesus' teaching. By asking hard questions to build up Peter's resilience. By allowing him to voice his fears and his doubts. By Peter's being willing to be forgiven and forgiving himself. And by letting Jesus' love wash warmly over him and erase that shame as they shared that intimate meal on the beach that last morning together. And in the end, by making everything right.